How's it going, ladies and bruises? Up, I'll be Sixkilla and welcome back to Root Double. It is finally time for the last episode. It is time for the true ending. And all we need to do is set both of these to max. Here we go. The choice lay with Natsuhiko, and there was only one chance to choose. This choice will determine the future. And my fate, Watase's fate, and Yuri's fate as well. Even when Natsuhiko was faced with the final choice. No. How the hell do you expect me to choose? He still had that thought. Following Watase's suggestion would just be a repeat of the same mistakes. Watase, I don't want to erase you. No matter how much you want me to. What? I've survived by erasing Nagisa time and time again. Even if I have no other choice, I've had enough. If I erase your memory, the current you will be annihilated. Even if you survive, one day your memory will come back, and I'll have to erase it again. Wouldn't we just be repeating our same mistake? I seriously don't want any more of it. That said, I can't hand over Yuri either. I can't go with you in her stead either. Remember what I said, I won't tolerate anyone becoming a sacrifice for any reason. I know that. But this choice isn't like the last one. Regardless of what you choose, it's not like anyone's gonna die. So you should be able to make a choice. And I'm sure there's only one route you need to choose, correct? But... Watase smiled wryly at Natsuhiko's muttering. Natsuhiko, don't disappoint me. How can you protect what's precious to you if you can't harden your heart? Natsuhiko and Watase's beliefs contradict each other. Neither could sway the other's conviction. There could not have been a way for both ideals to be upheld simultaneously. But even in the face of that impasse, Natsuhiko did not lose determination. I can't erase Watase's memory, nor can I sacrifice myself. But I'll still search for a route that we can both walk down upon. As Natsuhiko grasped at straws to find that route, Watase spoke up. Is there nothing that can bring you to a decision? Watase pulled back the gun's hammer as if to press Natsuhiko to an answer. But Natsuhiko held back his fear and thought to himself, could he do nothing to persuade Watase? The helicopter will probably get here soon. There's no time for hesitation. Obviously I don't want to do this, but I can still take Yuri away by force if I have to. Watase placed his finger on the trigger. Natsuhiko held back his fear and thought desperately. He used all of his knowledge at hand to desperately think again when he finally realized something. Within all of the fragments of his memories he'd seen so far was a truth that could pierce Watase's mind. Is that it? Could that convince Watase too? But should I tell him out loud? No, that probably wouldn't cut it. It was not something that could be conveyed verbally. Facts alone were not enough, neither were emotions. But put both facts and emotions together and I can do that. Natsuhiko recalled the phenomenon that had occurred earlier. When the 9 survivors were searching for a way to escape together, fragmentary visions flickered before their eyes. Within those fragmentary visions they found meaningful information, and thus everyone's minds united. I can invoke that phenomenon once more, with my ability. There was no time more opportune to use his ability than now. With that thought in mind, Natsuhiko raised his voice. Watase, you're wrong. What? It's not my choice. It's yours. Now that you know the truth, it's up to you to remake your decision. Your choice on how to live your life from now on. What are you saying? You don't know? No, with nothing but the memories you've seen, of course you wouldn't know. By themselves, our memories as individuals are imperfect, no more than fragments of information. Natsuhiko focused on Watase as he spoke, with the light of conviction burning in his eyes. I've been thinking, why was I given such an incredible power, unfitting of my stature? I'd be better off without this power. That's what I've always thought. But now I finally understand. BC doesn't exist to erase or warp memories at all. It exists to connect people's minds. Natsuhiko, what are you... Natsuhiko's words confused Watase. Just then, suddenly they heard the ticking of a watch's second hand. Watase gasped and looked down at his left arm. my god, it's Natsuhiko's watch. Before he knew it, his digital watch disappeared and turned into an analog watch. The watch's time and date. 9:16, 11:45 PM. Why? It all began in 2014, and for 16 years the truth had been concealed. But by weaving the memories of all 9 of us together, the truth comes into plain view. Indeed, Natsuhiko took the phenomenon he'd witnessed earlier and made it his own. That is the phenomenon of memory playback. But I'm not just playing back Watase's memories. I'm playing back the memories of several people. He'd taken countless fragmentary memories and compiled them together, like a film, to create something with meaning. He brought together the truth as is, without any memory manipulation, all in a wager to try and change Watase's mind. Behold, Watase, this is the truth. In that moment, their surroundings suddenly burned up in flames, and the landscape of Lake Rokume changed into the site of Rokume City Hospital. And time reversed to that night. Wataru, leave me and save yourself. What are you saying? There's no way in hell I can do that. That night, Watase Kasasagi had run away from the flames with his twin sister Wataru. Didn't I tell you that if you're in grave danger I'd save you even if it cost me my life? But we'll both die at this rate. You might still have a chance to get out of here by yourself. Watase, you can't give up. You have to keep fighting on and on until the bitter end. If you want to die, you can do that later. The Great Rokume City Arson. That was what the events of that night would come to be called. Watase inherited his sister's dying wish, setting his sights on joining the rescue squad. Everything set into motion that night. For that night was the curtain raiser of this city's secret story, 16 years in the making. Elsewhere that same night, a government official passed away. His daughter, Ina Tsubakiyama, stared at her late father's workplace and muttered to herself, "Daddy, I'll keep my promise. So please watch over me in heaven until then, okay?" She made a solemn oath to protect what her father had died trying to do. But she was still unaware of the truth behind her father's death, of what exactly he was trying to protect. A single communicator, Alison Flame, a woman once called a monster and a witch. She was the trigger to the Great Rokume City Arson and was confined in Labo after the incident. And while she lived in confinement, she fell in love with a certain researcher and conceived a child. But in exchange for giving life to her daughter, Alice lost her own life after the delivery. Miyoko Tenkawa named Alice's daughter Yui. The girl who would later become known as Salyu lived the first 13 years of her life as a test subject raised in Labo. The entire series of events was concealed by Labo and the Rokume City government. The truth disappeared into darkness and was eventually forgotten. Time passed, and 7 years later, Watase succeeded his late sister's dying wish and became a rescue worker. He saved 2 young girls from a collapsing apartment after a gas explosion. Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm gonna get you to a safe place soon, so just hold on tight. Among the 2 girls, one died and the other survived. The surviving girl, Jun Mortabe, came to adore the hero who had saved her. The girl who died was Nagisa Tachibana. Her death triggered her older sister, Kazami Tachibana, to set her sights on a new way of life. You're gonna be a firefighter, sis? But why? This is so sudden. No, it isn't. I've thought everything through, and this is the conclusion I've reached. Since she could not save her sister's life, she decided to work to save the lives of others instead. But in reality, Nagisa had lived. After the incident, her death was faked and she was confined in Labo. Nagisa wished desperately to see her sister again, and so 3 months after she was confined, she set out to escape from Labo. The KZN has just been detected. In accordance with the emergency, security has shifted to blockade mode, locking down all gates and bulkheads. But her intentions only led to a new tragedy. For that day, 2 children happened to be in Labo and got caught in the ensuing KZN. I'm sorry, Yuri. It's all because I took you with me. It's okay, Hikaru. I'm glad that you stayed with me until the end. To save Yuri Katono. Natsuhiko Tenkawa used telepathy for the very first time in his life. His message reached his mother and the two children were saved, but the mother lied to her son. Natsuhiko, please calm down and listen carefully. Yuri breathed her last breath last night. No way. The lie the mother meant to protect her son ended up crushing his mind. The girl who held Natsuhiko in her thoughts, Mashiro Toba, was shocked to see his transfiguration. Hey, what's wrong, Natsuhiko? He's been like that ever since he learned about Yuri's death. He couldn't come to terms with the truth and he shut his mind away. No. That day Mashiro swore upon her heart that she would support Natsuhiko until he returned to normal. But again, just like Nagisa, Yuri had lived. Her death was faked and she was confined in Labo. In an attempt to return Natsuhiko to normal, she tried to erase all of his memories of her. But she couldn't bear to do it, and gave him falsified memories instead. I'm sorry, Professor, I couldn't do it. That's fine. Let's go before Natsuhiko wakes up. And thus the two children were torn apart. But as before, the truth was concealed and the crime disappeared into the darkness once more. The tragedy left a deep wound on those at fault, and yet the days continued afterwards. Natsuhiko lived with the phantom Yuri as Mashiro watched over him. Watase became the captain of Sirius and reunited with Kazami. Jun set her sights on joining the rescue squad just as Kazami had. Yuri, Salyu and Nagisa continued life confined deep underground in Labo, never allowed to see each other. A long time passed, and eventually their fates began to flow. Ina joined the ESP Bureau to follow in her father's footsteps. Yukita joined Q to pursue his own justice. And Watase became Yukita's comrade to seek vengeance for Wataru. Yuri manipulated Sally's memory so as to allow her outside. Once Sally was outside of Labo, Dr. Tenkawa explained Rokume City's public order to her. Mashiro investigated Q on her own and told Natsuhiko how they had once been a citizen group. And finally, Kazami and Jun came to Labo as rescue workers completely oblivious to anything else. In every event, every memory that led up to this very moment, Natsuhiko had seen it all. By itself, each memory was no more than a fragment, a worthless scrap of information. But if you connect them all together, the multitude of memories wove into a single message. The words Natsuhiko wanted to tell Watase. Listen up, Watase. This is the other truth to the incident 16 years ago. Q was once not a terrorist organization. We were a simple citizen group with good intentions. The persecution of that group triggered A's unification to progress all the way to completion. And then that tragedy occurred. The first name Q took was the Anti-BC League. The Anti-BC League? The Anti-BC League. When strung together, the words said in the past formed a single meaning. The Anti-BC League. That name sound familiar? Remember, Watase, you've seen that very group 16 years ago. As soon as Natsuhiko said that, Watase recalled his own memories. We are the citizen group known as the Anti-BC League. The hell is this? Oh, they must be the BC Rejection Citizens group that's been troubling the city recently. Remember? They're the citizen group you and Wataru saw in front of the PRC back then. They're the ones who drove Communicator A to unification. They're the ones who formed Q. That was the first truth he needed to tell Watase. The next was the truth of the incident 9 years ago. Anti-BC... Oh shit, I missed one, sorry. There's my log. Anti-BC League members were arrested for the Great Rokume City arson, but we gathered up our scattered members a few years later and rebuilt the organization into its current form. And in the spring 9 years ago, they conducted just one small-scale destructive activity. Communicator residences were the target of direct destructive activity. And the targeted homes were partially destroyed, and some people even died. Nagisa's home. But it would cause huge uproar if such a huge incident happened at a government-designated top-secret city, when the entire point is to have public order, wouldn't it? So instead, the city government hushed those incidents and treated them as mere accident. And the targeted homes were at the Rokume Municipal Apartment Complex. Hearing those words brought back Watase's memory as well. No way, that apartment complex was targeted by Q? That's right, Watase. 9 years ago, they returned to the city and conducted destructive activity. In other words, the incident in the Rokume Municipal Apartment Complex was no ordinary gas explosion. It was a bomb attack from Q, wasn't it? Wait, that's nothing but conjecture, isn't it? Where's the proof? Even without proof, there's enough material to pass judgment. Inside your memory, that is. What? You've been doing rescue work in the city for years and years, haven't you? Then I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. 9 years ago in the spring, a building was partially destroyed and people died inside. Was there even one other incident like that besides the Rokume Municipal Apartment Complex gas explosion? 9 years ago in the spring, Q carried out destructive activity. It was an incident where homes were partially destroyed and people died, yet it was treated as an accident. What could that incident be referring to? The lack of any other matching incidents made the answer clear. After a long silent pause, Watase muttered the answer. No, there were no other such incidents. The only spring 2021 incident in this city that met those conditions were the one where Nagisa died. That was the answer that they arrived at. The one single truth that would move Watase's heart to change his mind. And then Watase returned to reality. He was at a loss for words. Watase had remembered the memories of 9 people as a single chain of events. It was a more lifelike experience compared to the telepathy he'd received in the control room. It felt as if he'd seen 16 years of Rokume City's history in an instant. Is this what you wanted to tell me, Natsuhiko? Yeah. So the great arson and the Rokume Municipal Apartment Complex gas explosion were both caused by Q. Natsuhiko sternly nodded. The truth behind those incidents had been covered up by the efforts of various people. But no matter how hard they tried to hide it, the truth remained within the fragments of memories. So tell me, Watase, are you still going to stay with the organization that caused Wataru's death? Watase gritted his teeth and hung his head. Countless instances of malice existed in this city all those 16 years. But just as many instances of justice existed in the city as well. Q was no more than a single instance, but still. It's the organization that wrecked Kazami, Mortabe, and teachers' lives, isn't it? Watase finally understood that. So in the end, does terrorism really beget nothing but tragedy? I thought that nothing would change without sacrifices. But then, that makes me the same as the Rokume City government. The same damn government that doesn't mind sacrificing others for the sake of public order, for the sake of science, and for the sake of money and self-protection. Watase lifted his head and looked at Natsuhiko and Yuri. Watase, you and I are different in just about every way. I'll never be you, and I'll probably never understand you from the bottom of my heart. But even if two people can never come to mutual understanding, if they comprise and search together, they're sure to find a brand new route to take. After hearing those words, Watase's convictions finally crumbled. Yeah. Watase quietly lowered his gun, and then he wordlessly looked up to the sky. Sparkling stars dotted the whole sky. The stars were spread out far apart and never seemed to overlap, much in the same way that human hearts never do. The distance between them was all hopelessly far, but regardless we strive for mutual understanding, without ever abandoning the desire to walk side by side. Once he reached the epiphany of what people were meant to do, he felt the dark intentions that had been ruling him finally fade away. Eventually, a wind-cutting sound approached from the distance. A helicopter silhouette drew down from the night sky. Right, we're gonna let the credits roll this time. It's the last time. The final one. Man. What a story. That game is fucking fantastic. Don't mind telling you, that is one of the best stories I've ever witnessed in a visual novel, ever. Fucking unreal. I hope you guys enjoyed the series as much as I enjoyed making it. It's been a long ride. What episode are we on now? 60? 60-ish? Must be around about there, and it's been It's been quite the roller coaster. I didn't expect it to go this far or to be this windy, but we got there. I'll leave here, let the credits roll. I'm sure there'll be a post-credit scene, probably quite a bit. So I'll see you then.
あなたの愛する者はどこへ行ったか。
あなたの愛する者はどこへ赴いたか。
私たちはあなたと共に尋ねよう。旧約聖書画家6章1節。
Early afternoon, September 19th, 2030. 3 days after the incident. At the White Tiger Gate, one of the gates that surrounded Orokume City, a woman stood alone. There were circles beneath her eyes, and her expression also revealed the slightest hints of exhaustion. But a fierce will shone in her eyes. It wasn't long before she heard the sound of a car engine driving towards her from the other side. The car passed through the gate and then drove up next to the woman and stopped. It was a red French sedan. The driver door opened, revealing a woman in a suit. "Thank you for your hard work, Dr. Tinkawa." The woman quickly replied to Ena's greeting. "Thank you for taking the trouble to come here, Commissioner Tsubakiyama." The woman, Miyoko Tinkawa, had received a call from Ena and waited for her to arrive at the city gate. Not to be outdone by Miyoko, Ena's face looked just as exhausted. But anyone could see that their eyes matched Miyoko's intensity. "It's been a long time since we've met in person, hasn't it? How are things on your end?" "Dealing with the whole aftermath without sleep or rest is just starting to catch up to me." "I thought so. You look quite worn out." "Oh no, this is nothing. It's a trivial matter compared to the suffering those children have been through." "That's true." "Incidentally, if you don't mind me asking, how are they doing?" "Please rest assured, your son and everyone else are in the custody of the ESP Bureau. Their injuries are currently being treated at a safe place." "Thank goodness, and thank you." "No, it's only a matter of course. Though the situation has gotten much worse as a result of how slow we at the ESP Bureau were to act. Don't be ridiculous. When you get down to it, this incident was entirely our responsibility, and by extension, my own. You see, I'd considered trying to save the test subjects, but in the end, I could just never bring myself to act." Miyoko looked down in shame when she said that. "And in the end, one of them never made it out alive." "You mean Miss Nagisa, don't you?" "Yes. I may not have been in charge of her, but even so, I had hoped that I could someday let her go free in the outside world along with Yuri and Yui." Miyoko gritted her teeth. Ina took her hand and spoke. "Professor, I know how you feel. But the time for regrets will have to wait until later. Now's not the time. There is much we have to do after all." "You're right." Miyoko gripped Ina's hand back and spoke. "To avenge Nagisa and the others, and to ensure closure for everyone whose lives were trampled on or snuffed out along the way." Suddenly Miyoko heard more cars approaching from beyond the city gate. There wasn't just one or two of them. Over 10 cars filled with members of the ESP Bureau passed through the gates and invaded Orokume City. "Let us begin. It's time to clean up this city." "Yes." The woman then looked to the city. Spread out before them was the townscape of the government-designated top-secret city, swirling with deceit and malice. The incident that occurred in the 6th Laboratory of Atomic and Biological Organization had sparked a worldwide phenomenon. And with that, the many incidents that occurred and had been covered up over the past 16 years had all been brought to light one after another, starting with the truth behind Labo. Now that they couldn't return to Orokume City, Natsuko and the others were spread out all over the country after the incident to elude the pursuer's eyes. They all then set out on all sorts of new ventures. Natsuko, Yuri, Mashiro and Sally appealed to public opinion through the media by revealing the truth they'd seen as living witnesses of the incident. Watase and Ukita were tried as terrorists by the law, but their sentences were greatly reduced as compensation for their full cooperation in exterminating Q. Jun made a direct appeal to her father, one of the city council members, and took action to drastically restructure Orokume City. The journey was a long one, but Kazami supported Jun all the way. Finally, Ina and Dr. Tenkawa stayed in Orokume City together and fully cooperated with the ESP Bureau's full investigation into Labo and the Orokume City government's other offences. Ukita joined them once he was released from prison, and together they worked to ensure that someday they could establish a BC research facility rooted in social justice. chaos reigned throughout society for a while, but it gradually calmed down, and peace began to return to the world. These are fragments of the memories that took place over that year. Memories with Kazami Tachibana. As Watase walked out the prison's back gate, the prison guard gave him a smile, the same tired line he gave everybody. And don't ever come back, you hear? But of course. Thanks for your help. Watase deeply bowed his head when he said that, then turned around and walked out of into the outside world for the first time in about a year. He took a great deep breath. Ooh, fresh air really does taste the best. That line was just as cliched as the guards had been, but he was only being half serious. Well then, what do we do now? He was glad he was finally out, but he didn't have a place to stay the night. The plan had been for Ena to pick him up and take him to his new temporary residence, but she was nowhere to be found. Did something come up? Just as he thought that, a voice called out to him from behind. Watase? Watase turned around in surprise to see none other than Kazami standing there. Kazami, why are you here? Miss Tsubakiyama told me you were being released today. What? Ena was being far too considerate. She'd gone ahead and arranged for this even though Watase hadn't asked for it? Wait, more importantly, is it okay for you to even be here? What do you mean? Aren't you being targeted by the press or all sorts of examination authorities or whatever? Kazami was currently one of the few level 6 ability communicators in all of Japan. Though she was keeping that a secret from the world, she was also one of the victims of the Labo incident. Watase had heard from Ena that she'd been living a secluded life, just like Natsuhiko and the others. That's why she'd never come to visit Watase in prison, and why he thought he'd never see her again. You realize what kind of articles they'll write if they find out you met up with someone who literally just got out of prison. I don't care. I can't let you act that way. Even the BSP Bureau is keeping an eye on... Did you hear me? I said I don't care. Enforcing Kazami's voice discouraged him from speaking further. Watase swallowed what he'd been about to say and watched silently. None of that matters to me, because I've been waiting for this day a long time. Watase just then noticed that her eyes were brimming with tears. Kazami? You don't know just how much I missed you, do you? First you suddenly break up with me 2 years ago, and then I finally learned the reason why after a year of waiting. And the moment I thought we could finally get a fresh start together, you disappear again. I've had it up to here with your selfishness. I finally meet you again for the first time in a year, and what do I get? No words of comfort, just a cold shoulder. The SB Bureau and the media can go to hell for all I care, none of that matters to me. You met with Miss Tsubakiyama all the time, yet you never sent me a single letter. Well, I'm sorry about that. A year of pent-up emotions for Kazami came shooting out of her mouth all at once. Watase was stunned by the look on her face. He'd never seen that kind of expression from her ever before. Besides, don't you remember our promise? Don't you remember what you said back when we kissed in the engine room? You said let's go for a walk through the park again if we make it out of here, remember? Of course I do, I remember, but... Watase's face suddenly grew dead serious as he tried to calm Kazami. Don't you get it, Kazami? I'm an ex-convict. What's worse, I'm the terrorist who destroyed Labo. And from Q's perspective, I'm a traitor. There are probably guys in Rokume City's government and Q who hate my guts. Some probably even want me dead. You can never be happy being with someone like me. Idiot, do you really think a wimpy little threat like that is all it's gonna take to get me to leave you? Wimpy? Are you... I've grown strong, you know. I spent 3 months in tears after losing Nagisa again, but I was able to overcome that even without you around. I'm no longer the kind of woman who'll just keep waiting for you. From now on, I'm sticking with you no matter how much you protest. Kazami stared Watase dead in the eyes. There was indeed a strong light in her eyes, but there's that part about her that she pushes herself too far. Watase knew that. Kazami was probably under the surveillance of BC officials throughout Japan, just like Natsuhiko and the others were. He didn't expect there to be any woman who could live under that kind of pressure all by herself. Yet she pushed that all aside, went to see Watase and bared her feelings for him for the first time in her life. Watase felt her heartfelt respect for her resolve. I'm sorry, Kazami. I'm sorry I kept you waiting for a year. I'll keep my promise. Watase said that and looked at Kazami. She was no ordinary woman. She was a level 6 communicator who had once hated Watase enough to want him dead. Neither of them knew if she'd one day become enified. Perhaps she would turn into an uncontrollable monster. But despite that, Watase wanted to respond to her feelings earnestly. However, I'm not going to suggest that we start dating again. Huh? I don't want you to be my girlfriend. Watase said that, walked up to Kazami, and embraced her. Kazami, will you marry me? The woman in his arms gasped. Before long, she gave him the biggest, most relieved smile he'd ever seen from her. I will. Those memories became the past in an instant, and new days continued on afterwards. And now we have finally reached today. It's September 19th, 2031, exactly 1 year after that incident. It's the first time in a while that I have visited Rokume City. Watase Kasasagi's present. A gentle breeze sways through the trees. I slowly walk down the road as I feel that wind caress my cheeks. In my left hand is a bouquet, and in my right is the hand of the woman I love more than anything. The weather's so nice, isn't it? Yeah, it's really calm and peaceful. The air never tasted this good in prison. I'm relishing in the freedom I finally obtained from the bottom of my heart. I'm finally walking, not under confinement, nor under someone else's control, but on my own 2 feet. I never thought I'd be so grateful for something we all take for granted. I'll have to thank Teach for making sure I got released in time for today. That's true. Kazami casts her eyes downward. Her face from the side still looks as beautiful as ever. I know I just got out of prison, but I'm sorry for being so busy. The year's gone by and yet I still have lots to do. No, don't be sorry, I don't mind. I'm just happy that you're alive and that you can live by my side. Kazami and I look at each other, but right then, we hear a voice call out to us from far up ahead. Jeez, get a room, you guys. I look to find Jun staring at us. She's wearing the same orange uniform. Though Kazami and I have resigned, Jun's still unserious. Hurry up, or my lunch break's gonna end you here. I'm not supposed to be here, so rapido. Whoa, now, no need to rush. Not today of all days. I see you're as cheerful as always. What are you on about? It's because it's today that I want to act cheerful. Her eyes widen at those words. That's true. Then I guess it's about time we go see her, don't you think? Yeah. We resume walking at those words. A destination, Rokume Cemetery, located on the other side of the woods in the park. Nagisa? Today is the anniversary of Nagisa's death. We overcame many obstacles just so we could visit her grave. And when we make our way to the Tachibana family grave, Nagisa's resting place. Oh. We find 2 familiar faces. Oh my, someone's late. No, haven't seen you people in ages. It's Teach and old man Ukita. Looks like they got here before us and offered sticks of incense at Nagisa's grave. Mr. Tsubakiyama, Mr. Ukita, you came here too? I apologize if we made you feel obligated to stop by at such a busy time. Don't worry, this is far more important than anything on my plate right now. That's right, and this marks my first full year of atonement. Teach and the old man smile as they say that. We return their smiles and then offer flowers to Nagisa's grave. But man, it's been ages since I've seen you guys. What have you been up to? I reached out to Dr. Tenkawa after I was released from prison. We're currently gathering sympathizers to help us plan out the development of an ethically moral BC research facility. Like the PRC back in its days of yore. I've been going back and forth to 6 different government-designated top-secret cities. Man, I'm so busy I feel like I'm gonna die. So similar problems really are going on in the other top-secret cities, aren't they? Not as bad as Rokume City, but yeah, they more or less all have skeletons in their closet. There's also the matter of Q too, isn't there? It may look peaceful, but this country sure is full of problems, huh? Ina replied with a sigh in her voice. It takes a huge incident like this one to wake people up before they notice these problems, huh? Even if they sense that there's a problem, they never go looking for it. And as society gets more complex, so too do its problems. And when more people get involved, their own individual circumstances and definitions of justice get tangled up, and eventually it becomes too difficult to tell who's in the wrong. Perhaps there really is some truth to that. It was the same with Labo. Whose fault was it that caused that insane incident? The people running Labo or Rokume City's officials? Was it the fault of that pharmaceutical company that was the business partners with Labo? Was it the fault of those 2 researchers who died underground, or the many other senior fellows who turned a blind eye? If you go further back, you could say it was caused by Alice in Flame, her parents, or the people who persecuted Alice. Perhaps Isha Azumi, the man who developed Alice's BC abilities, or Section Chief Tsubakiyama, Teacher's father, who suggested the establishment of Labo, were also factors. The more people involved, the harder it gets to pin one down as fully responsible. The malice of individuals may seem utterly trivial, but when one's malice spreads to others, it amplifies and stagnates and decays. Sometimes it decays enough for people in on the whole problem to not even notice it. But still, if there are problems, someone's got to fix them, right? Indeed. But even if you know of that problem, it's difficult to build up the courage to correct it. And sometimes even those with that courage go about correcting the problems in decisively illegal ways. The old man and I exchange wry smiles. Kazami mutters sadly, "If it takes the loss of others for people to finally realize that, then we'll be forced to keep losing all sorts of things in the future." If so, then does that mean Nagasa's death was an inevitable part of that process? No chance in hell. I instantly answer Kazami's question. We must never assume that it's inevitable for there to be victims. Never. There are those who can't be forgiven. Every problem in this world has its own root cause. That's a fact. If many people are involved, then they should all take responsibility. Oh my, you're sounding rather full of yourself there? You got no right to talk, Mr. Ex-Terrorist. Yeah, I was a terrorist. The worst son of a bitch there was. If you just look at that incident last year by itself, then I deserve more blame for it than anyone else. Property damage, assembling with dangerous weapons, assault, violating the swords and firearms control law, all of that and more is on me. It's a miracle a scoundrel like me got released in just a year. But I've atoned for my sins. So I figured that now that I'm out of prison, I'll work to make this world a better place, this time without taking up arms. I'm in no position to face the world, but at the very least my intentions are true. After I finish giving that rather self-indulgent speech, I expect to find everyone staring at me oddly, but well, that's just the kind of person you always were. Well, you have gotten the resolve to bear those sins, right? Besides, without the opportunity to start things over, there'd be nobody left to take responsibility. I have no right to be saying anything, but I agree with you for now, Captain Kasasagi. The four of them accept me with wry smiles. I mentally breathe a sigh of relief. Kazami then speaks up. But that aside, I hope others can change just like you have. If they don't, then Nagisa and the others will truly never rest in peace. Sis, I'm sure they can change this time. When you look back on history, things like this have happened over and over again. Like with the Chernobyl power plant disaster or the incident at Labo last year, both may have been dark chapters in history. But each time people learn, people regret, and people reconsider their actions little by little. That's what I believe. Teach suddenly speaks up when she hears that. You're talking about before crime after days, aren't you? Huh? You've never heard of it? It's a proposal that sociologists made about the phenomenon of drastic transitions in society. It refers to when there's a sudden change in society's value systems when you compare them before a crime is exposed and in the days after. That's exactly how it is in this case. Society changes after something once thought normal becomes deemed as strange and criminal. We have to fix what's wrong, and we have to change ourselves too. If we don't, then our society will just get crazier and crazier. That's what almost everyone thinks. I see. That's certainly the case with me personally. I changed greatly before committing that crime, and in the days after. I don't mean to advocate crime at all, but I definitely thought that things needed to change, both in this world and in myself. We've been able to live in those days after. We came face to face with the major incident. So we mustn't waste those days. I look at Kazami after I say that. Hey Kazami, I swear I'll make this society as good a place as I can. If we can change, then our surroundings should be able to change little by little too. No, they have to change. Even if that's a naive ideal of mine, I can't do anything unless I believe that. My true atonement is to devote the rest of my life to ensure that change. Kazami then finally smiles, as if she can tell what I'm thinking. That's right. Malice may spread from person to person, but that's because goodwill does as well. Yeah, exactly. A thought crosses my mind when I hear that. Indeed, when people come into contact, they definitely have some sort of mutual effect on each other. They then respond to that change, and their relationship starts to change too. If there is a goodwill, and the will to understand one another in there, then their relationship will surely turn out good. Much like how our relationships changed greatly in those 9 hours. When I think about that, I suddenly start to wonder how he is doing. Hey Teach, about the brat. Is he doing well? You would know, wouldn't you? Oh my, are you actually worried about him? Well, a little. Oh brother, you sure ain't honest. Oh, this is just what things are like between two men. I think you've become a little calmer recently, but I guess that party hasn't changed a bit, has it? I break out into a wry smile from Kazami and the others' comments. I then look to the skies and think, of course I'm worried, how could I not be? We nearly fought to the death once. That's why I offer a silent prayer for his sake. I pray that he's living his life peacefully in those days after. Everyone here surely feels the same way. They all must be praying for peaceful days for the partners they fought side by side with on that fateful day. And around that time, I'm with Yuri and the others, heading straight for Rokume Park. Natsuhiko Tenkai was present. For a while, we've been living a secluded life in order to escape the watchful eyes of the media. But as the chaos of the world calmed down, we took opportunity to finally return to Rokume City. And besides, today's the first anniversary of that girl's death. Visiting her grave is another reason we came here. The weather sure is nice, huh? Yuri blissfully smiles as she squints her eyes. Mashido, Saliu and Mum respond. It sure is peaceful here. Hard to believe what happened a year ago, isn't it? I agree, it's been so peaceful lately that it's a little boring though. You sure are tough, Yui. If you got that much energy to spare, then I'd like you to help out with my work. I've spent 3 sleepless nights already with all this back and forth negotiation with the ESP Bureau. It's really tiring, I'm getting too old for this. It's alright, Mum, we'll all help out together. Of course. I'll help out with the cooking and stuff too. I'll help out somehow too. Oh my, I was just joking, you kids need to go to school. I'm working so hard, you kids can live like normal kids after all. I see. I really think she's a great mum. She's such a loving, capable and strong person, and to be honest, I'm proud to be her son. But I can't stay under her wing forever. Yuri, Mashido, Saliu, let's help Mum out, even if she insists we don't. Of course. Sure thing. We exchange these words with a smile. Eventually we reach the park. Yuri murmurs as we walk down the road to Rokume Cemetery. Still, this place sure brings me back. Yeah, it's been about 10 years since you've walked here, right Yuri? Yeah. Say Hikaden, do you remember what I said when we reunited in Labo a year ago? I do. You said you wanted us to walk in this park together again, right? Yeah, I'm so glad my wish was granted. Mashido and the others smile as Yuri's eyes begin to water. We can walk here as much as we want now, Yuri. Yes, I'll walk with you as much as you'd like. Right. I nodded those words too. The girls seem happy that we came back to the city. Painful things happened here, but so too did many nostalgic memories. It's the city that Mashido loves, the city Saliu found where she belonged, and the city where Yuri wanted to walk freely. The city we lived in, and the city we finally returned to. We could choose our destination with our own free will. Some may take that privilege for granted, but it truly is a blessing. Say guys, what is it? We're alive, aren't we? We took back freedom with our own hands, didn't we? Sounds moving when you say it seriously like that. True, you all did so well to come back alive. It's thanks to the 9 of us, and to you too, Dr. Tenkawa. Yes, most of all it's thanks to him. Not that I'll ever say that though, it's embarrassing. My feelings about him still haven't changed. He's a partner I feel grateful to, and he deserves my respect, but we're completely different. All the way from our heights to our ideologies. We can't even reach mutual understanding. And as that thought crosses my mind, Yuri suddenly smiles. Well, no, actually. It might not have been just us. Huh? As we look at her in confusion, Yuri looks off into the distance. Guys, don't you remember? Back then inside Labo, about 10 minutes before the bomb exploded, there was that intense flashback, remember? Yeah, there's no way I could forget that. That was so mysterious, huh? I wonder what that was. In any case, it was a lifesaver. It coincidentally revealed an escape method. Actually, that might not have been a coincidence. Mum nods at Yuri's proposition. I've heard about that matter from Yuri. She said that BC used in the past came back in a particular sequence, correct? Yeah. Furthermore, there was meaningful information in that sequence, meaning some sort of consciousness was possibly born within Labo at that time. A consciousness? Actually, Yuri and I were trying to perform that sort of experiment that day. An experiment to see if the stagnation and accumulation of information energy emitted with BC could create a consciousness. In other words, an experiment to create a spirit. A spirit. Do you think one was made, Mum? Well, it's hard to tell at this point. We can't verify it either. Good point. But you know, Hikaden, I felt there really was something within Labo back then. I think it had been drifting in Labo ever since the WX particle amplifier was activated at 6 AM. I think that at first it was just an empty spirit without a will of its own, unable to do anything but observe the events happening there. But as it receives our BC little by little, it took the information stored within. And after it was full to the brim with information energy, Mr. Spirit was finally born with a will of its own. Born, and then what? You see, I get the feeling Mr. Spirit was the one who helped us out in the end. Mr. Spirit found an escape route, and tried to convey it to us. So you mean that's what the flashback was? Yes. I mean, Mr. Spirit doesn't have a way to convey its will to us on its own, does it? So instead, it pieced together the important information it had to point out the escape route for us, I guess. Yuri, you're such a romanticist. Not that I have a problem with it or anything. I still think it was just a coincidence. I can't comment on it either way. Not until we run a reproducible experiment, that is. Aw. Yuri sulks at how none of them agree with her. She looks at me as if to ask for me to back her up. Hey Hikaden, what do you think? Don't you feel like someone helped us out back there then? He answered the question with a smile. Yeah, of course I do. Really? Good grief, Natsuki, you always agree with Yuri. Good grief. Good grief indeed. No, I've always been thinking that. I really did feel like someone helped us out back then. Was that so? Well, let's just leave it at that, I guess. Everyone smiles once Marshido says that. I smile too, as I secretly think to myself, I do agree with Yuri's opinion for the most part, but there's actually one part I disagree with. Was it really just that last flashback where we were helped out? Weren't we helped out way before that? When I think about it, whenever I had to make an important judgment call, whether to trust someone or to doubt them, I felt like some kind of vague feeling was pushing me from behind. Well, if I talked about it out loud, I don't think anyone would understand, so I'll just keep it to myself for now. But still, guys, if Mr. Spirit really was born, then where do you think it went? Well, assuming it did get born, Labo did get blown up back then. So would it have disappeared in the explosion? Well, the BC particle energy did decay. No, maybe once the insulators were destroyed, it left Labo and now it's drifting about somewhere. I look up at the sky as I say that. Professor Tsubakiyama once said in a lecture that all bodies of energy mix upon contact. So even if the BC particle energy did decay, that doesn't mean it disappeared completely. So perhaps it was released from Labo's dark facility and spread to all corners of the world. Though if that were the case, then I guess the spirit's consciousness would start fading too. It'll probably never try to speak to us again. After all, for its 9 hours of existence, it used quite unreliable communication. But it still left us with something precious. What that newborn spirit conveyed to us was a will that desired to connect people together. The wish to share minds and walk side by side. Even if my communication with you has stopped, my will shall never fade. It will remain in the minds of those I came into contact with. My wish will never be lost. It will stay with you forever. Grand end, I like it. That's it. Extend episode. What's that? Maybe we'll have to come back and check that out. I don't know. But for now, because it's an hour long, that was the true ending. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.